So welcome everyone. We're for a big treat today. My guest, Harold Sexton, knows a lot about Ruth Drown, one of my favorites. And I'm so happy he knows all this about her because there's very few people you could talk to about her. And she was such a wise, advanced soul. And I mean, so much she did still hasn't been replicated. So let's go over Harold is a certified biofeedback therapist, aromatherapist, retired engineer, and has been a dowser since 1984. He worked in mind dynamics for over 30 years, including hypnosis, psychology, and natural laws. His background in engineering and aerospace gives a unique perspective to earth energies and the whole person. He owns Nature's Oils, which offers energized natural essential oils and blends, and he uses his dowsing for clearing geopathic zones for homes. He also offers quantum biofeedback, which includes the use of the computer fields, oils, affirmative statements, and biofeedback to uplift emotional states to a more positive life setting, bringing people into balance, which we really need in this day and age during our pandemic time. And so his website, which I'll put underneath the video when it goes up, is www.naturesoils.net. And so I'll put his contact information and the website. So welcome, Harold.
Well, thank you. There's not many people that ask me about Ruth Drown.
So we're keeping her alive.
True.
Yeah, so anyhow, so maybe you could just talk a little bit about her history, who she was, and then we can go into other stuff like, her.
Okay, let me explain how I mean, I knew about Ruth Drown kind of as a name.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a friend who was into theosophy.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't want her information out.
Name unavailable. So, and we had a friend, and she was in theosophy, and she mentioned about Ruth Drown, and I said, Ruth Drown, yes. And she goes, my mother worked with Dr. Drown.
Whoa.
In Los Angeles when I was growing up. So she said, well, she's an older lady, and she said, well, what I'll do is I'll give you all of the Ruth Drown things that I have.
Wow.
So I was going to show you today some of the things that I've got from her.
Yeah.
Which is like a treasure that, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So before I get into her, maybe I'd explain, like you say, the history.
Tell who she is, because 90% don't know.
Yeah. Dr. Drown grew up in Greeley, Colorado, and her father was a photographer, which ties into what we're going to be talking about Dr. Drown later. But as she went to school, got her degree, became a doctor, and then she moved to Los Angeles. And she had looked into Dr. Abrams, that had done lots of things with non-localized, how should we call it, through the ether, as they called it at the time.
Yeah, cosmic energies.
Right. And this is back in the early 1930s, in fact, even in late 20s. And she started doing research, and she came up with a unit that she sold, which I will show you in a minute, which really sold generally to the people around Los Angeles for the most part. I mean, she did deal with people in other countries and things, but most of the market was in the Los Angeles area. And the unit, which I'll show you, was rather expensive for the time. It was about $5,000,
Mhm.
which in those times was like you could buy a house for less money than that.
And that's what they're going for now.
Yes. So, and then as she continued research, her real aim as she went through this was to go deeper than just doing therapies with the unit that she already had. And then she came up with the, it's like this radio vision.
Mhm.
This was published in 1939
Wow.
and actually has pictures of different, well, I know you can't see this very well, but you can actually
Just hold it. Yeah, there.
pictures of
You
different
know, you know what? I'm going to put the share screen on, and you could we share it. Well, we can see that actually. But if you have other things, I can put the share screen up, and then you just put it up.
Okay, and this whole book is every page
Mm-hmm.
has another picture. And that was one thing she did.
That was her etheric photography.
And then she also had this book also, which this was published in, and by the way, this is copy number 2.
Wow.
So, and then
What's the title of that one? Oh, the theory and techniques.
Yes.
Okay.
And in this one, the person who gave this to me, therapy, she wrote in here, in every type of obesity, the endocrine wheel is at fault because she's a little overweight. So that's the reason she was so interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a picture of Dr. Drown.
You know what? Let me get the share screen. Oh.
And
no, you have to do it.
oh,
That's okay. Just hold it up. Just put it up by your face. There you go. Perfect picture.
Oh,
you know what's so interesting as you showed that picture? I was reading Trevor Constable and all of that, and he was just like enamored with her. And he said that she had this hawk nose and these eyes, and when you looked at her, she reminded him of that Egyptian hawk, that knows all things.
Oh yes,
he said she was 92 pounds and just had that presence,
She did have 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was censored, where they had the raid, basically her children, they were so petrified by that happening that they did not continue her work, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they knew how to do it, and they even worked in the factory where she was building the units. And there's another piece.
Mm-hmm.
This one's more common.
Right.
And
I have the Kabbalah one, and the one about Atlantis that she wrote, like all of her meditations and everything on Atlantis,
okay.
Like those. These are amazing.
She was quite religious. How would I say, spiritually religious?
Mm-hmm.
And she gives the rates and things in here, as well as.
Can you explain what a rate is, like a little, because a lot of people don't know all this.
Well, many people are familiar with frequencies because
Mm-hmm.
everybody hears frequencies, everything from your telephone to your TV. Rates are not based on frequencies at all.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the device that you're using, rates have little dials on them. And by the way, I'll show her unit at this rate.
Okay, good.
Here is
do you see at the bottom of your screen, it says share? It's green.
Oh, yes.
Hit that.
Okay.
And you'll be able to share.
Whoops. Where'd you go? You're gone.
We're here, but what's that picture? Oh, it's a magnet quadrant and meeting solutions.
Leader in Gardner Magic Quadrant for Meeting Solutions. Yes.
Is that where we should be?
Not
that what you
familiar with
wanted?
me.
Huh?
This is post attendee.
Oh my God.
You got it too.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Just hit stop share
Um,
at the bottom. At the top, it'll say just hit the stop share.
You are over on the edge. I can see you and me.
Yeah,
But
but
what
we
it's
can't
showing-
see, we can't see the middle.
Oh, okay. See, stop share. Here we go. Okay.
Okay,
I don't know what happened.
we'll just continue. Just
Okay.
hold
When
it
you
up.
okay, when you use her unit, this is the foot plates.
Uh-huh.
It's up like so, and then
Okay.
this on the other end plugs in to her device.
So those are the grounding plates that you put your
This is the
feet on.
grounding plates. You don't use any arm, hands, or head plates. It's strictly foot.
Okay.
This is the unit.
Wow, that's the real thing.
Yep, 9-dial. And the reason I'm showing this in this early state, you can see where the foot thing plugs in.
Mm-hmm.
This uses no electricity. It simply goes
Runs
to
on
earth.
etheric energy, like
Yes.
no plugging in, no computers,
Nope,
nothing.
just goes to the earth. But those dials on there are what determines the rate. And so to find the rate for different things, you would typically use, some people douse, or you can use what's called a sticky plate, which was her method,
Mm-hmm.
where you move your finger back and forth on a smooth surface until it gets sticky. And then that's the number that you should use for the rate. And there are thousands and thousands of rates for different things. But that was her basis of how you do it.
I had with her machine, they had said that it's a possible 2 billion combination. It just is like you can't even imagine how you could get that with 9 dials.
True.
But each one is how many? Each one has different increments, so I guess you can.
True. And then she made another device which is not very well known, and I have one of these.
Wow, what is that?
This was for hemorrhaging.
Well, I can't hear you.
For hemorrhaging. In other
Hemorrhaging.
words, if somebody's hemorrhaging, what you do is you get a drop of the person's blood, you put it on a card, and the card goes in this right here. So you raise this up,
Yeah.
put it in, and this has a rate in it, but it's already, if you look in here, you cannot see it.
Mm-hmm.
Too dark, but you can see some little potentiometers in there, just barely.
Uh-huh.
That's preset for hemorrhage control.
Wow.
I've never seen another one of these anywhere. But
Well, I mean, what's so amazing when you're showing this, she had I think when it came down to the end, 17,000 patients. I mean,
yes.
and her rate of cure was just astronomical using the equipment you're showing us. To
True, and
diagnose. Yeah.
And she had some vials. I have the vials.
Wow. What a gold mine.
And these are, and one of them here says Captain Adams. So I assume that whoever Captain Adams was, this was the specific vial for him.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's covering up what was underneath it, in other words, what was in it to begin with, I don't know, because it's all
right,
crusted with time. Some of the others are things like here's HCl. So if somebody had stomach things going on. Another one is sweet spirits nitrate. Not quite sure what that means.
So with these vials, she would put them on the equipment, right?
Let me show you where it is. You see that little hole in there?
Oh, I see that hole, right?
That's where the vials.
You're covering your voice when you do that. You're covering the audio.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, but there's the dial where you put, okay, where you put
So,
it. And then she would do the same thing, turn the dials so you needed the right amount, right?
the way that it worked is she had cards on file
Mm-hmm.
with people's blood in them.
Right.
And so you would call her and say, hey, I'm not feeling well.
Oh, I see.
And what she would do is use her sticky plate and come up with which dials and where to set the dials. And then she would tell you, she would phone you and say, well, I want you to put in this vial, whatever one it was,
Mm-hmm.
into the hole and set your rates that are on the 9 dials to the following dials. And then,
Now this is to other doctors
or
or
no
to
patient.
patients. Oh,
Other
they have the
patients.
machines.
Yeah, like this one.
Oh,
They have this
I
device.
didn't know that. This
Yeah.
was telemedicine way back.
Yes, way before. So, and then they would set their instrument for the dial settings that she told them.
Mhm.
And then she would tell them how long to do it. I want you to do this for 10 minutes or an hour or whatever.
Mhm.
And so they would plug in those foot plates, use that on an absolute ground. She preferred a ground going right into the earth. In other words, don't use the electrical circuit in the house at all.
Mhm.
You use it, go directly to ground,
Mhm.
and then people would get better and get well.
I know. It just, I mean, it just like there were so many, and people flew in from around the world to see her. I mean,
Yes.
beyond, it was like really amazing.
Yes, she was, and even in the book, she has,
Yeah.
she mentions on the photographs that she made that this is only the beginning. I mean,
Mhm.
I want to continue to do more research on this until it ended, of course, but I'll get into that.
Yeah.
But she thought that the photographs, if she continued to research them further, she could make them clearer and clearer and easier to read. And there were some physicians at the time that were using her photographs to do when they were doing surgery.
So why don't get into why her photography was different from regular photography and hasn't been replicated?
Yes, there's I have to look it up, but there's a picture. It shows it's a large box. It's about 2 feet wide by 2 feet deep and about 4 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
She would put a photographic plate inside of this device, like you were shooting a regular, an old picture, that you were using with a photographic film.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had dials on the front, same thing, just like we're talking about here for the rates. And she would put the rate
she had dials on the photography and the photographic equipment too.
On the equipment too.
Oh.
Yes. And
that's how she tuned in to where she was going.
And then she had the blood sample from the person that she put into it. It's the same way. And then how long that took, I don't know if anybody really knows that.
But I mean, she was dowsing like with her stick plates to get that information.
How long?
That's how she did it. I see.
So it's up. I've gone to conventions like in the Bahamas or in Europe, where people have asked the question, why don't you on our equipment, the ones I use, why don't you do that? And boy, the question just sails. I mean, nobody will answer the question because actually they don't know how she really did it. And they usually change the subject into something else.
I mean, I have that one, because I have a book of them where that the patient was in France, and then she had his drop of blood back in Hollywood, and then he was having an operation. He got a hold of her, and so right at the time the knife was going in for the surgery, she photographed it, and it was exact, and you see the knife in the photograph.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
No, I mean, there's so many, like, just unbelievable.
Yes. If she had been allowed to continue,
Mm-hmm.
our medical system today would be just entirely different than what it is.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But in the late 50s, when they started going after Royal Rife because of his frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
and they started going after her. So they did a raid and shut her. It took all the instruments that she had made, took them with them.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what they did with them?
Of
Anyway.
course, they didn't destroy them.
Yeah. Well, they said they destroyed them, but anyway. So that stopped her completely. And this was, like I said, about 19. It's kind of fuzzy, but it's in the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
This happened because one of these books was published in 1960. So she was obviously still
Mm-hmm.
practicing in 1960. She died before her trial came to happen. She died in 1963. No, excuse me, 1963. Her trial was supposed to be in 1965.
Mm-hmm.
The two backers that were with him, one man got probation, and the other gentleman went to jail, of which he put up a rebuttal to him, getting the sentence. He had a lifetime sentence.
Wait a minute, who were these two backers? These were two people. I don't know about this.
Okay.
So who are they?
These people were supporting her financially as well. So the FDA
during her legal problems.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
So they both were pretty well put out of commission. Well, the guy that had the probation, at least he could still live his life normally. He just obviously his source of income from Dr. Drown was gone.
Right.
And this time's a really dark time because they went after everybody that was outside at the time. I mean, even Hoxie down in, that was in, I think he was in Texas or Oklahoma.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Hoxie had to move to Tijuana, which they're
and you still can go there and get that cure.
My daughter is currently using Hoxie right now.
Wow.
So,
and Wilhelm Reich at the same during this
Yes.
time also with his organ accumulator and everything, they went after him.
Yeah, right. And very interesting thing on Reich is how he died is very nebulous because he was going to get out of prison and he suddenly had a heart attack before he got out.
Yeah.
And all of Reich's research and everything he did was supposed to be released last year.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen any huge, increase in the amount of things that were available, for years and years all looked at.
I remember back when all that was going down, they said that his kids or something, they hid a lot of stuff in that cave.
Oh, interesting.
To keep it away, you know what I mean? Because they knew it was all coming down and it was the only way they could hide it. Yeah.
And when they went after his stuff, they also burned everything that they could get a hold of. Of course, what set that one off was, I'm kind of getting off Dr. Drown here a bit, but
it's all the same.
It is. It's all the same thing and at the same time.
Right.
He had one of his cloudbusters.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
That they invited him to bring the cloudbuster down because it hadn't rained enough and all their crops were dying. This thing was huge. I don't know. Have you seen pictures of it?
They're big pipes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And they put them up at an angle towards the sky, and it rained.
Right.
And that's when they went after him, when it rained.
Yeah.
But let me regress back to Dr. Drown about how they did her in. And
just 1 second before that, I have to tell you, Trevor Constable, like he he took over all that Reich research, and he made cloudbusters. So I have a video and I have to watch it. It's an old one, and because they go bad, but it was like he was out at sea with the cloudbuster. So he put it to the left of the boat and it rained there. So it's a very boring video. You watch 15 minutes raining, then you take and put it to the right. It rains on the right side of the boat. Then it rains. Anyhow, the whole video is that. I just had to tell you. It's like, but it was so real. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. So obviously it was effective.
Right.
And then his whole thing with orgone energy and all of the things that you've done. If anybody hasn't looked into Wilhelm Reich, I would suggest, and he worked with Sigmund Freud at one time, because his background was being a psychiatrist.
Right.
So, but Dr. Drown, so remember I said they made up these little cards with people's blood samples.
Right.
So what this lady did is she sent in 3 blood samples, one for her and one for her 2 children. And then she called her, and these blood samples were not from her and her children, they were from animals.
Oh my God.
And so she called in and said she had a problem, and Dr. Drown diagnosed it. Well, the one that she had used was from a pig, so there was parasites. So she said that it has parasites, right? And so what then the woman did, she was paid off by the FDA. So what she did is she went to a doctor and had her child checked for parasites. Of course, the child did not have parasites.
Right.
That's what instigated the raid and all the other stuff from that. So the whole thing was a lie to begin with. But, then they got her for malpractice and things that, if she would have came to trial and she would have had a good lawyer, she would have got out of it. But still, the whole business was ruined.
The stress of it all, just like
and I'm sure that's why she died. It's the stress, the whole situation.
Because there was some other time, like I forgot, there were a couple other times when they tried to get her or something. And then there was I was reading where she had, this is all blurry from the past, but she started using her photography equipment and that for prospecting minerals. Was that?
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
When did that happen in the whole realm of things?
I
Just
don't
simultaneously?
because I don't know where that was in time.
I see. Okay.
Because she had vials of certain minerals, right?
Okay.
So then she could, and I don't know, she must have done some form of a map dowsing of some sort that she could use. She had the mineral and doing the right rate for it, fine, like you say. And of course, they didn't like that either.
All the wrong choices.
True. I mean, it's kind of like Reif when he went to University of Heidelberg in Germany. They gave him an honorary doctorate degree. And that's the reason most of these devices that you see, and not all of them, but most of them come from Europe.
Right.
The one I use comes from Budapest. But there are several other, particularly German. There's several German devices.
Oh, the Germans are always at the apex of all this kind of research. Yeah.
True.
And the Russians too. Yeah.
The Russians. Yeah, I do have a couple Russian devices. I have a couple German devices.
Whoa, you've got the whole collection.
Oh, I have over 40 devices. Yeah.
Wow. And what's the main one that you like the best?
The Skio.
How do you spell that?
SCIO.
Oh, Seal. Okay.
And I use that when I do sessions on people, because I have it so it checks about 10,000 different things. And then it puts them in order of which ones are most out. And then it has built in everything from acupuncture built into it. Very sophisticated. I've been doing it for more than 20 years.
Now, is this hooked up to a computer?
This is a computer.
Oh, it is so it's a computerized one. Okay.
Right. And the reason I like this over I'll just say other devices rather than call them out by name.
Exactly.
Is I can cover a lot of ground in a relatively short time. So my sessions are typically 3 hours long. The people at the other end, the initial test for it is only about 3 or 4 minutes.
Right.
Then I just go ahead and work on things. And then when I get done with it, then the person calls me back and I tell them
Right.
oh, I know. There's usually 5 or 6, 7 pages of notes that people have from, because I have your pH and how much your immune system is working, various things that give them pretty good. And what I like, it's both diagnostic and moving things. So it works very, very well. I have had clients, some of them for, well, I have a child that has cerebral palsy, and I've worked with him for, let me see, 12 years, almost going on 13.
Wow.
He used to spend 200 days a year in the hospital when he was a child. And since I have been working with him, he has only been into the hospital twice.
Wow.
Once last year and once at the early, because he has a feeding tube and he can't speak and he's in a wheelchair. And now he is 21, almost 22 years old.
Wow.
And his mother, she just calls me whenever he starts going into a rage. And then we work also with homeopathics with him as well, because you can put him in his belly button. You can't really put him in his mouth, but he, I would, maybe I'm kind of going out on a limb, but I would venture to say he probably wouldn't be around.
Right.
Only because the constant antibiotics they would always give him when he went to the hospital, which is digestion is already compromised. So it was very, very poor. So, but
okay. But I mean, this is amazing. You've got so much. So that back to our little Ruth Drown.
yes, if she was allowed to go forward, it would be incredible what things would be like today. I do use other, I do use other systems because I can put the reactivity of somebody to any word, whether it's a positive or a negative. You can see what that is. So when I'm running somebody, I'm running 6 computers at the same time.
Wow.
And so I can get an accumulation of data to put into the SKIO as I'm doing it. And then I have some other programs on other computers that run for several days and let that go as well. So that's
amazing. This is a real operation.
well, it's something I enjoy, and since my
background now, I just know for you as Mr. Dowser in essential oils.
Yeah, and then on my oils, when I won't go into this too much because it sounds like an ad, but it's called Tune to You. And if you put down what characteristics you want me to work on, what I do is I douse and I come up with an oil for you. And then I give you the oils that I put in it, so you know what in the world's in it. And it's very, very interesting. Sometimes there's 8 or 9 oils, and sometimes there's 10 or 15. It just depends on what the person was calling out.
Yeah.
Because it's physical, emotional, whatever spiritual that they happen to have a problem with. But it's fun. And then I charge all the oils so they have a larger field than what they do normally.
Wow. Okay.
So normally, if you take any bottle of oil, doesn't matter whose it was, whether it's multi-level marketing or at the Best Foods, usually they have around a 3 or 4 foot field. When I get done, they have like a 50-foot field. So and people say, well, you've changed the oil. And I'm going, no, I really haven't physically changed the oil at all. The only thing I've done is whatever the natural, how would I say, essence of the oil is increased so that it can be more effective. So
you just went into the more etheric realms, like going out of it. Yeah,
exactly. So so then somebody says, well, I was using, I will say, blank oil, you know, and it was working well. Should I use the same amount? And I said, you're going to have to evaluate that, because in some cases you may want to use appreciably less. And other times it seems to be about the same. So it varies from oil to oil and what they're using it for. So, there's no absolute, yes, you need to do this.
Did she use essential oils at all or no?
No,
talk about it, right?
I have never read, because all the vials that she had were basically, tinctures. And they weren't, I've never heard of her ever using any oils.
Oh, okay.
Of course, at that time period, since oils were not very common, other than frankincense, myrrh, all the lavender, stuff like that were very common. But other than that, there wasn't really any oils. It would be very interesting to check that out sometime and see what came out of it. So
because she was so into the minerals, and then I been from the Chinese point of view, the stone medicine, that before the herbs, they were doing all stone medicine, but then that stone lasts for life. And you got to get new herbs every month. So we know where that went. And but I was wondering, she's maybe was using minerals too.
Yeah, she did a lot of Madame Blavatsky and things, Theosophy. She did stay, the lady that gave me this materials that I have, she was quite heavy into Theosophy, and that's what made the link between her and Dr. Drown, because they went to the same meetings that Theosophy had in Los Angeles area. And, it's still around today, but it's not a real popular, in other words, there aren't lodges and meetings on Theosophy like there were in the 50s, especially in the Los Angeles area.
Well, even the Masons,
Yes.
because I was a member of a lodge and stuff, and they're all a lot of them are just it's changing,
Yeah, in fact, that format of having a lodge, people come to it, seems to be decreasing, regardless of, even in the dowsers, there's less and less chapters.
Right. That's what we can really see, how that's really been decimated in, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I know when I was in high school, I was in DeMolay because my dad was a Mason, right?
Oh, and I was, what were they? Not Jehovah's Witness. I forgot, Job's Witness.
Okay.
Job's daughter. There you go.
Job's daughters, that's it. And then there was Rainbow Girls.
Okay.
And one time when we lived in more southern Arizona, the Rainbow Girls, in their studying of things, found out that the person that started it, their last name was Sexson, spelled like Sexson. And so they invited me to one of their big parties. And yes, it was started by a Sexton, and I'm sure it was in my lineage because all of my uncles and things were all, big Masons and Rainbow Girls and all and all the rest of it. But it was very, very interesting because I have no attachment to which branch he went into to start that. So,
but it's so interesting when you think of Jacques de Molay, because he was the Knight Templar who was burned. And so there was such a connection to the Knights Templar. I forgot, I just put that together again. Yeah.
Well, it's not something you discuss often.
Exactly, because I just forgot about that. Okay.
Good. Yeah, I'm sure there is somebody in the world somewhere, particularly in Europe, that certainly would be looking at Ruth's, radio vision, as she called it, to work on that. But so far, I have never heard of anybody who is.
Because she was looking at the cross-sectional, of the tumor, she's looking at the cross-sectional part of it, right? Not the outside.
Correct. And the photographs themselves, as you mentioned, from the knife blade that was in the one shot,
Mm-hmm.
these were taken at instantaneous speed.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like something that just slowly developed and you had a picture. It was just like you had taken a camera and went snap
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and got it. So yeah, that's
Delaware, where, I don't know how, I just read it and I never say it out loud. Delaware, WARR, the big Radionics guy who had the Dewar cameras. Those were
yes.
different.
I am not familiar enough. I don't know.
Okay.
What explain that a little bit. How
Well,
does
no, he
his,
was a big English, he was in English, so the Delaware, he like did all this radionic and, like how to do the different rates with all of the circles and all of that and broadcast it. Like Malcolm Ray, was it Malcolm Ray? Well, how to broadcast it. Anyhow, he developed an etheric camera, so I didn't know. That's all I'm
okay.
asking.
No, I do know that in the UK, Radionics is a very popular. They have a whole association. I get their emails and things. They have trainings every year, and very well. Since it's reasonably not mentioned in this country, you can't really do much with it unless you call it something else.
Well, the Queen uses it, everybody says.
Yes, yes.
The
But
whole
over there-
royal family is on it.
Well, and the whole royal family uses homeopathics as well and have for almost 200 years. So
Yeah.
it's a, even though they're very similar to us in the Western medicine pieces, they also practice things that weren't outlawed there like they were here.
Right, because here they really push it for more agricultural means, right?
Yeah, and I have known a number of people who even, I was mentioning the steo, had used the steo for agricultural use. I personally have not, but there was a couple of people, we used to have big meetings, like 50, 60 people that all had a device. These devices are expensive. They're, I'd say between $20,000 and $25,000.
Wow.
And there was one fellow who, that's all he did. That was his living. And he would, I guess he didn't want to spook people too much, that he could do it remotely. He would drive to wherever their acreage was, and he would run the device, and he was going, to Stockton and all over in Texas. And he was fairly well known. So farmers would invite him back, particularly organic farmers. So,
and was this for pest control?
Well, it was for two reasons. One is they were almost all organic crops, right? So the pest control was part of it, but also the growth rate, and how fast you could get a crop to come up and so I never heard, I'm sure she did, but I never heard of Ruth Drown going into that that I know of, unless she did a few things but never became famous for that.
Because at that period in time you didn't need to,
True. Of course, before there were pesticides, we had organic food to begin with.
There we go.
True. So,
I remember like Acres magazine, everybody would be getting, because they would have all of that kind of information. It was one of those,
True. And the people, well, I only knew this one fellow, but he never advertised anywhere. He was busy, because sometimes he wasn't even to we did monthly meetings, and he wasn't there because he was off somewhere, doing a field someplace. So it was very interesting.
I had taken training way back under Ludi Larson, and she's from Utah. She was really big in the SE5.
Oh, okay.
And her whole thing was agricultural and plants, and because she was like this Mormon with, and had a huge family with 10 kids and whatever. But maybe I
Yep.
exaggerate a bit, but I mean, so it was more that, it was with the food, the crops, and then helping everybody with that, yeah.
Yeah, there were quite a few because here in the Phoenix area, there's a lot of Mormons.
Mhm.
And when we used to have our meetings before that all broke up, there were quite a few Mormons that had devices because they were
Mhm.
into more natural ways of
Right.
going about it. And I still have a few Mormon people that I know to buy oils from me because they
Mhm.
know my prices are better and they like my quality and all those things. So, but yeah, it's and it makes sense. You know, if you were into a more, you know, if your whole belief system was more natural oriented, you would want to find something that, hey, that's a great idea.
Exactly.
I'll do that.
So the thing is with her machine and the 9 dials and all, that was all based on the Sephra tree of the Kabbalah, right?
Yes. Yep.
Mhm.
All because she's that's already there.
Mhm.
Let's find a way to translate that into a physical thing so that you see how that works.
Yeah, it was just like a blueprint, and then she could
Yep.
just work off of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really, it's amazing how she did that. I mean, because she put, the planetary relationships and so much stuff, and then put all that into the program. Yeah.
You know, so you know that some people in astrology kind of get a little piece of what she did there, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, she did it's just amazing genius. And it's also a genius that all of these people existed at the same time. So we had Rife, Reich, and her all almost
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same time. You know, Rife with the original microscope that he had, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
he could magnify 40,000 times.
Right.
You know, it's
Something living.
yes, yeah. Why? Yeah, they're not killed by whatever the electron beam is. They're actually there and they're alive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, in fact, his genius, the fact that he was tuning a radio and he noticed when he was looking through his microscope, when he hit a certain spot, these bacteria would vibrate and blow up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, somebody who was not as bright as him would said, oh, what a weird thing,
Right.
continued on their way. But instead, he starts at, well, where was I at? What happened? What frequency was I on?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then his carrier frequencies that he had. It's, you know, it's genius that he went into the area that he did. So,
Trevor Constable, bringing him up again, but he's one of my favorites. Anyhow, because he was so into UFOs, and then he photographed those critters in the sky, because he used kind of the same way of developing film that she did. So
oh,
he found that there's these big kind of globulous critters in the sky. He would go out into the desert. He had hundreds of photographs of them. And then someone in Italy did the same thing using
now
his
this is,
technique.
did they use far infrared or anything like that, or just regular
In
photograph?
his book, The Cosmic Pulse of Life, he tells you exactly how to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about that. Sounds like something really fun to go do. You know what I mean? So his
Well,
whole thing was, we live in the earth, not on it, because it's this whole, there's all these animals, like we're at the bottom of this etheric sea, you
yep.
know, like Dirac, the physicist, the Dirac sea, we're living in it. Yeah.
You know, anybody who thinks that, hey, we're alone in this universe, you go, that's impossible.
Exactly. But I mean, but he had the actual proof over and over again. He went with a friend out in the desert, and then he had made like a certain ritual. They would turn a certain way and then turn another way, directional, and that would attract these things.
Wow, very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know whenever you take pictures, and sometimes you get the little
Oh, yeah.
dots,
Mhm.
they're going
Those
on there.
orbs.
Yeah, and I think some of the pictures that have been taken from people in space some of those things that dart around and move around, I just figure they're orbs. They're just further up. You know,
Right. Yeah.
just not down here. So are they, you know, I mean, it's energy and it's alive, but you know, is it a person? No, not really. I
No,
mean,
it's another type of energy, of entity.
Yep.
So anyhow, it looks like we're at our time here. We just like,
Good.
that was fast. So
True.
why don't you give us information so what your exact website and everything is, so people
Okay.
can check
The
you out, and
website.
I'll have it under the video.
Okay. My website, you can see the oils obviously under Nature's Oils. So it looks like naturesoils.net.
That's how I mispronounced it to begin with. So
Oh, well, and a lot of people do.
Nature's Oils. Okay.
Yes. .net. Make sure it's .net, because there is another company that has .com that I used to have and somehow got all mixed up. Anyway, and if you look through that, I also have a description of my energy stuff, but it's way down in the comments. It's a separate website. It's byregion.com, but I have it incorporated into the Nature's Oils.
Okay.
And it's and it gives a pretty generic description of what I do. But because I've taken out the how would I say, words that tend to arouse people you would rather not get. So
just like I don't have anyone use the V word on my
yes,
interviews.
please, yes.
Or the I word. There's certain little
the C. There's several C's. Don't use any of those.
exactly. It just tricks it.
Yeah, true. And it's interesting that one time I had a list of all the different words that they look for. It's 4 or 5 pages, and I'm sure it's expanded because that was 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow.
And if those words are there, they will be looking at you.
Exactly. So we just keep it in another direction.
So but under Nature's Oils, I do have a just so you can buy online, buying oils. I prefer and you can buy any size, but you have to call me in order to buy different size.
Okay.
So if you want an ounce of something or whatever, then you need to call me to order that. I don't put that on the website. It was just simpler to do it that way. I do have some videos on there as well. Talked to a gentleman named Ken Rolla that has a place in Florida, and he does lots of energy work and does lots of Reich's little energy things that he sells.
Organite.
Yes. Yeah, I keep a few of them around different places.
Yeah, I've got some beautiful pyramids that are organite.
Oh yeah, yep. And I like yourself, do a little shungite stuff. So
Well, the last time I saw you was pre-pandemic, and we were next to each other at the dowsing convention, and you were selling your oils and I was selling my shungite.
Yep. I do have several pounds of shungite powder I ordered.
I have that too, because people
And
are putting it in paint.
Yes. I would say in paint would be probably the best way to use it.
But it's really messy.
It is
So dusty.
I mean, it was even on the outside of the package.
Yeah. No, it's all over. And you just come out and your hands are just like full of it. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's so that's
so I put a lot in. I gave it to different people and they all put it in their gardens. It was just messy to have it around, you know?
Yep. Because it does help gardens. So it's good stuff.
No, that was it. Okay, Harold, this was great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
I'm so impressed with your fabulous collection of Ruth Drown. And I mean, that's so amazing. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the exposure.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep all the whole purpose of these interviews is like bringing like really new, innovative, techniques and information, and then also reclaiming these people that are just like disappearing. I'm trying to find someone who knew the whole Frances Nixon thing. I mean, hers just like is just like, you know, it's just hard. Like, and some people took it over in Texas, I'd heard, and they just like decimated her. They don't even know who she is.
Jeez.
Yeah. So do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
these people who had such wisdom.
True.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank
And
you.
bye, everybody. And I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.